Jazakallah. Next question.
Alaikum. This question is actually towards Mr. Anwar Saab. Earlier, you had mentioned that a majority of the Ummah, or majority of the world even, considers Ahmadis as non-Muslims or whatever. But if it's majority you're looking at, then a majority of the world is Christianity. So technically, Christianity overtakes that. So, but that aside, my question, two other questions. Do you believe that God has stopped speaking to humanity? That's number one. And if he has, then when exactly was it? I mean, do you have any idea when he stopped speaking or when he will start speaking again, or any idea of that? And third question is that you had mentioned earlier that that the promised Messiah, and believing that Jesus Christ is alive in heaven, before he was corrected, he had committed shirk. But Abraham, Hazrat Ibrahim, peace be upon him, he wondered I believe it's mentioned in the Quran. I think everyone's aware of it as well. It's mentioned that he wondered if the moon was God. And then he even wondered if the sun was God. So when, at that point, he was committing shirk, should we not accept him as a prophet then? Because he also committed a great shirk by, wondering if the moon is the God or the sun would be God. But then later on, God obviously corrected it, and then he believed in God, obviously. We know that. So, there you go.
Okay, thank you. That's one rebuttal and two questions, right? So the first point you made is that Muslims are a majority and they consider Ahmadis to be non-Muslims. And so by that logic, Christianity should be true because there's more Christians than Muslims and they consider us to be disbelievers or not saved. So that is why, to my memory, you can correct me, but in my introduction or in my points, I didn't forward that point. I didn't ever use the fact that we're 1 billion as an evidence. I mentioned that we're 1 billion, but I didn't forward that as an evidence that we must be correct, we must be true, because there's 1 billion of us and there's whatever 10 million of you or however much. So I didn't use that as an evidence. I agree with you. I think I did bring it up when I was saying that if Ansar Saab is saying that we are the only Ahmadis because we believe in Mirza Saab as a prophet, the Lahoris are not Ahmadis because they don't believe in him as a prophet. I was pointing out that the Lahoris believe in him as a figurative prophet. How do we know that you have to believe in Mirza Saab as a full-fledged prophet and not only a figurative prophet? He didn't give an answer for that. If his answer is that, well, we're the majority community and we decide how to define the nature of the prophethood of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, then by that logic, I could say that we have the right to define what we mean by Khatm Nubuwat, and we can't let any fringe group come and now redefine it now after so many hundreds of years. So that's my rebuttal to your rebuttal. Then one of your questions was, what was the second question before Nabi Ibrahim, you had it? Right, did Allah stop speaking? Well, the Islamic tradition shows no, because there are many Sufi awliya, and I don't have the references with me, but Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani and others who have made such claims that God has spoken to them, but it's not wahi. So there's a difference between ilham and wahi. Wahi would be sort of legislative in nature. In other words, somebody saying that God has spoken to me, and now if you don't accept the authority of my claim that God has spoken to me, you're outside of the pale of Islam. That type of God speech we don't believe is coming now. And then the last question was a very good question, that if Nabi Ibrahim committed shirk by worshipping the stars and the moon and the sun before he was corrected by Allah, then why are we faulting Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Saab for having the wrong Aqidah? So number one, you didn't contest the fact that it is Shirkul Akbar, according to Mirza Saab, to believe that Jesus is alive in the heavens. But point number two is that if you look at the classical tafsir, again, whether it matters to you or not, but the classical tafsirs written on that episode of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam says that he was not actually worshipping the stars or the moon or the sun, but he was actually directing the people that were around him. He was trying to get them to think. Remember that Nabi Ibrahim was very intelligent. We know this from the Quran. I'm not just saying that. We know from the Quran when he broke the biggest statue, right? And he's pointed at, he broke all the other statues except the biggest one. And then when his father and the people came, he pointed towards the big statue, said, ask him. This was a very witty, a very intelligent man. So to believe that he worshipped the stars or the moon, and he didn't know the moon is going to set, He didn't know the sun was going to set. This goes contrary to reason and common sense. Moreover, very quickly, to answer the same question, I'll quote actually from your tafsir, which is on alislam.org. There's a 5-volume Quranic tafsir there. And I'll just read just the relevant part. It actually says, it is an error to infer from these verses, this is Surah Al-An'am, by the way. It's an error to infer from these verses that Abraham was himself groping in the dark and did not know who his God was. That he took the evening star, the moon, and the sun for God, one after another. And when each one of them set in its turn, he gave up his belief in their divinity and turned to the one God, the creator of the heavens and the earth. The passage contains no less than 11 clear evidences to show that Abraham was not really taking these heavenly bodies for gods, but that his object was to demonstrate to his people the vanity of their beliefs step by step. I hope that really clearly answers the question. So it's my honor tonight not just to defend the Prophet Muhammad, but to defend Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam as well, but using your tafsir from your website.